On this episode of The Clarity Code,
We picked out a list of words that we do not say at Parakeet. We will never say we're cutting edge. We will never say like we're robust. All of those words, because I don't know what they mean in any context. And I don't think people reading those really do either. Like, tell me what that means. How are you empowering me to do more sales?
Yeah, I think for me, that's the biggest turnoff to any company. If it claims to be the best, number one, most robust, AI first, all the buzzwords that we think are so important just fill that chaos. I just want to know, what can you do for me, and how's it going to happen, and how quickly am I going to see results? Welcome to The Clarity Code, the podcast for marketers who want to crush with video. I'm Brandon D. Marks, your host, and I'm really excited about our very first episode featuring Andrew AJ Kissh. AJ is a full-stack digital brand builder with 10 years of experience, optimizing buyer journeys and building GTM strategies for B2B and SaaS companies. As the head of marketing at Parakeet, AJ blends cold outreach with inbound marketing to elevate brand visibility and to drive measurable business growth. So great to have you here, AJ. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about following you on LinkedIn is you're one of my favorite influencers. And that's because your posts all the time, but they're not blah. I see a lot of people who post a lot, but there's no substance. And I love that yours do. I mean, they're short, they educate me, and they make me laugh a lot. So you're doing great in that space.
I appreciate the comments there. I think it's the first time I've been referred to or been called an influencer. So I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back and say I'm doing things just all right then.
Yeah, I think you can add that to the resume for sure. Part of what I see as a trend in branding and marketing is a lot of times is the people and not even the company as much when you get down to a LinkedIn level. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what's more important, the brand's presence on social media, LinkedIn, versus someone like yourself having a really strong presence on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to juggle, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, like what I post on my socials is my thoughts, my opinions, my belief, but I'm doing it as an extension of the brand, as is the CEO, even though, and the founder of Parakeet, Eric Gordon there, like, even though he owns and runs the business and he's the one cutting the checks for everybody underneath the roof there, like, that's still his personal page and his thoughts and his opinions that he puts out there. So trying to find the balance of, like, what is my thought? Am I talking on behalf of the brand is can be kind of tricky, but if I think of all of the marketing assets, including me as an extension of that, it makes it a little bit easier of, like, we can flex, we can bend, we can kind of change and modify just as you would if you were doing posting anything from like LinkedIn, which is obviously a bit more professional and buttoned up. It's getting away from that these days, but it should be a bit more professional and buttoned up, to something on like the farther end of the spectrum, like Reddit, which, like, you have to speak that language. You can't just go in there and copy paste what you've done on other mediums. So trying to find that blend has been a kind of fun and interesting challenge. And I think some of the friction and maybe some of where I've gotten my recent attention and kind of exposure is going against that grain, trying to be a bit more casual and authentic, and, using some of those, whether it's censored or not censored curse words on LinkedIn, and trying to just be a little bit, a little pinch of salt in the proverbial wound here. It just it's that pattern disrupt to say, hold on, that was something different and I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. I think standing out, having a company stand out among all the other companies that are very similar is a challenge. So what's your secret to success in making it stand out? Is it, your personal updates, your LinkedIn, or what does it go beyond that? What makes it successful for you?
Yeah, well, we first started when I first joined, right? We pretty much had a logo, kind of chicken scratch on a cocktail napkin, and that's kind of what I was handed. We had a couple colors that we were able to play with naturally from, the name is Parakeet, so we can kind of pull from that existing nature's color palette, if you will. But I did a bit of an audit throughout the landscape to look at what our competitors are doing, what they're saying, how they look, feel, all that, and I noticed it was a sea of blue. Everything is blue. Everything is very calm, cool, collected. It's sassified. So it made it very easy to just go, well, obviously let's go with green. Let's go dark green, light green, and yellow because nobody's doing that. And to kind of double down on the nature of what we're doing, again, with the SaaSification of all of our competitors. And what I mean by that is the overindulgent language of we're an AI first robust platform built for cutting edge technology. It's like, let me throw up in my mouth. Like, just talk to me like a friend. And that was really what I set out to do the most with this brand of let's talk to our the prospects, let's talk to our customers, let's talk to each other like we would in a text chain to a friend. Like that's what I want. I want you to tell me what it is, shoot me straight, give me the information, and don't give me this verbose language of, trying to make ourselves feel better or feel more important than we are. At the end of the day, like cold outreach is tough. People have a lot of questions. Things are changing on like a minute by minute basis, especially with all the AI stuff as of right now. So keeping it as relatable, as transparent, as easy to digest as possible is like my number one goal when it comes to all the communication. And it takes some revisions. You're not going to get it right on the first time, and we've altered things like our value props and our homepage messaging and things like that. So it's like every day we're trying to just be that kind of 1% better, but just in this case, like a bit 1% more understandable and transparent.
Yeah, I feel like there was such a push for technology, AI, one-upping another company. And what I'm noticing is the most successful companies are really bringing that personability, the human to human, nature of something that is inherently not human. We're talking about, in your case, cold email outreach. It's very electronic. It's digital, but you're bringing like that personal touch with some of your marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the worst things that you can do is continue to talk about, what everyone else is talking about, and in this case, it's the AI, the rise of AI and everything to do with AI. And of course, I'm not going to be the total contrarian here and say, AI is useless and you shouldn't. Like, of course you should. There's a lot of things that it can automate and take the boring and mundane things off your plate and make you more effective. Especially as like in my case, I'm pretty much a solo marketer. I've got a couple of resources, but in house, it's just me, myself, and I. So like I have to utilize those technologies. But in terms of how we're talking and how we're showing ourselves and even the product, like the product has AI features, which is really great. But at the end of the day, like you should be using it to supplement your existing abilities to do outbound, to sell, to talk about your product, your expertise. And that's really where that remaining or the emphasis on like being human or being authentic really comes from. And sometimes it can kind of be lost. Like we talk about like being human almost as people talk about in the outbound space, like, oh, just be relevant. Like, okay, cool, what does that mean? Give me something tactical. What exactly does that mean? And the same thing with human. Like, what does that mean? I think about like the classic iRobot scene. And in my head, it's like, do you know how to be human? It's like, well, do you? If you've been using AI to write your copy for like the last even just 8 months, which is a relatively short time span, but is a lifetime in this rapidly evolving cycle, like you could really lose touch of what are my thoughts, what are my opinions, what are my goals, like where do I want my brand, the my personal brand, the brand I'm representing, all of it. Like it can get really murky really quick. So it should be the supplementation or the empowering of what you're already doing.
Yeah, totally agreed. I think an anecdote on what I think makes Parakeet's brands stand out to me is your Spotify playlist. It's listed right up there with your socials. I saw that the other day, and I thought this is just one other way to humanize. When I click on your Spotify playlist, I was thinking like this has to be a podcast. Some more boring information that we're getting as a marketing tool. But then when you click on it, it's all these songs. Did you curate this list, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I actually that was one of the early things I did, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of those. I'll say it's a marketing asset, right? That I genuinely forget about. Like I did it a while ago. It was kind of funny. I was like, oh, I guess we'll post it. At the time we didn't have a whole lot of things to really share because we were still very much in that like building mode. But every once in a while, I get somebody to bring it up to be like, that was really funny, or like that was cool, or I loved how the layout of it, whatever it is. And again, going back to like utilizing AI in the right way, like you could have AI spin up a generated image within 45 seconds that is like perfectly curated and everyone can get a good chuckle out of it. But like if you don't if you don't use that in the right way, like if I don't post it on the website and make a comment about it, or if it's not real, like if it's fake, it's just fluff, it's artificial, it's nothing of substance. So I take a little bit of pride that I did the hard manual labor of going through Spotify to find all those songs.
Well, it pays off. It pays off for sure because that sticks out to show that something the AI can't do. But like you said, AI is still an amazing tool. So let's talk a little bit about video and marketing. How has that played a role in success or maybe even not success with your marketing?
Yeah, video has been I wanna say it's been massive, and I think the reason why I kinda have that hesitation is that it always feels in flux these days, just based on a lot of the vanity metrics, especially on something like LinkedIn. But I mean, when when we have these demos or we have people reach out to us about our service and they wanna contact us, and we get these little anecdotes of like, oh, I've been following you, or I've been following Eric or Kyle, our head of sales. I've been seeing you guys and I love what you guys put out. And oh, I love that little thing, or thanks so much for talking about deliverability and explaining it that way because now I understand it so much more. And I think people can get wrapped up in the vanity metrics of it all, of like, oh, only 1,000 people saw, or whatever your benchmark is. And I go back to a bit of a cliche that is like, yeah, but you just need the one. Like, you just need one person to find value from it. And that one person can end up reaching out and be either a big ticket sale for us on a monthly recurring basis, or they could be the one first user that is sticky and is our true brand evangelist and will sing our praises from the rooftops. Like, that's the one you should go after. Like, you should go after the one, in whichever criteria that kind of fits. So video has been a really big piece in terms of not only communicating our ideas, because I get to be nuanced with it. I get to be a little funny, or we get to be casual. You get to see how we actually interact on a person to person basis and know what to expect when you have these kind of sales calls or demo calls, any sort of interaction with us. Um, but it humanizes us, like again, going back to the AI thing, I could spin up 1,000 posts and post 10 a day till the end of eternity and schedule them all out. And like, I would never have to think about those again. But those are then not my ideas. If I'm sitting like we are now behind this camera, I'm forced to have these ideas in real time as they come from brain to mouth and out into the ether.
Wow, brain to mouth to the ether. I love that. What's been the most successful style video? I mean, there's everything from a polished commercial to an explainer to, just user generated content. What do you think has been the most successful for you?
Any sort of showing off the product is certainly going to be the most beneficial in terms of getting new customers in the door and having them interested about not only our product but our services that we offer. But the quick hit clips, whether again it's like just the Parakeet crew talking back and forth, or if it's our In the Nest podcast and we're interviewing other founders and other people in the outbound space, those they're just a really great point to humanize and find that relevance and sharing of the information. Again, outbound is confusing. It's convoluted. There's a lot of things changing minute by minute, and to find somebody or to hear and listen to a conversation of two people saying like, I also struggle with that, and here's how I found a resolution, or that's always been a problem and it always will be a problem. You just have to kind of keep at it. Both of those scenarios are really helpful for somebody, especially novices in the space, to understand that like we're all going through this together. We're all trying to figure it out, and just like anything in life, like don't trust anybody who says I've got it all figured out.
That doesn't exist in reality, that's for sure. Yeah, I would totally agree with you. Here's a trend I'm noticing. I would say 5 years ago, video was everything, specifically on LinkedIn. Polished, uh, content that was well produced. And then now I feel like that trend is going down on LinkedIn, and really more of the UGC is coming up. I mean, that's what we're recording right now, right? But also text-based marketing has really taken over that market. Have you noticed the same, or would you disagree?
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure, I would agree. The 5 years ago kind of time frame that you said, I think everyone and their mother was doing some sort of corporate branded video with god awful elevator music in the background saying, like, "At Oracle, we're happy to have," it's like, "Shut up, man. Like, stop it."
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
nobody
Stop.
nobody wants that. I think the trend went to kind of where we're still at as of right now, like focusing on the individual of the organization to highlight certain aspects of the organization. And what I'm really meaning by that is like a day in a life style video, or get ready with me, or my 9 to 5 or my 5 to 9 style, like those types of POV with a camera, a little less polished, but still polished enough to have like a voiceover. Now I think it's kind of fun and a bit more engaging to see real people. Like, keep the stutters in, keep the ums and the whats to a certain degree. Like, I know I'm not the most perfect speaker, so if we can clean this up, that'll be fantastic. But if you hear me trip over some words or reorganize the way I'm thinking in, the real time of recording this, like, it just goes to show that like, this is me. This isn't an AI version of me. It's authentic. Like, again, it's my thoughts at this real time. And the same thing with the brand, like having founders or CEOs or anybody in some sort of a semi-leadership position. I mean, they could even be, I've seen social media managers, with certainly not to degrade that title and what they mean to an organization, but to kind of point out that they're not C-suite. If you have somebody that says like, "Hey guys, I'm going to set up this data table and I'm going to organize it in this way, and this is how we get the best use out of this auxiliary platform to use our platform," or et cetera, kind of in that domain, like those are helpful. Those are real. That's how you get these like authentic moments, and you do enough of that, and they culminate into one big brand experience that does 100, if not 1,000x more than what you can get from some super high polished where, it just feels like everyone's on their best behavior. I got a haircut and a new shirt just for this recording. Like, there's a time and a place for that. Like customer testimonials, I think are a really good use of, like, you're sitting down with somebody who's invested not only their time, their energy, and their money in you and your company. Do what you can to show them off into the absolute best light, whether it's post-production editing, or it's finding the right background and scenario, or even something as small as like picking the right font to pair with that video. Like,
Right.
that's the right time. Polish the hell out of this. This conversation, we can probably keep a bit more, a bit more casual. I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt, for God's sakes. I didn't even put on a collar for this.
Same. Same. Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's for me as a consumer, on the consumer side, I find myself skipping a lot more of the polished content on a Instagram or a LinkedIn feed. But when it comes to the UGC or just something more personal, that's really where the attraction comes in and where like the stickiness is. And so I'm curious your thoughts on how do you do that well, like still remaining within brand, because a lot of times, I'd say 5, 10 years ago, had to have logos, had to have the production. How can you do that well while still maintaining awareness of your brand?
It's a great question, and kind of like the earlier topic of how do you keep your personal brand separate but also still an extension of the main brand. I think
Yeah.
that line still kind of treads in a bit of a gray area. The kind of quick heuristic when I'm thinking about like the building, or even like the kind of post editing of whatever this is, or the creation of it, the quick heuristic that I tend to go to is, if I'm having a gut reaction to say, like, I would love one more logo placement, or like maybe we should tag the brand, or like, maybe I should, whatever it is, that one more, that's the one you don't add. That's the one you say, nope, we've done enough. Anything extra is a blatant plug, and people start to sniff that out. I think one of the reasons why people love the understated brands, these days, I mean, especially in fashion. I take a lot of inspiration from retail and like D2C brands, just because it's such a more transparent kind of one-to-one, type of interaction. And I think back to my days in like middle school and high school, and like Hollister was the biggest thing, and these big tattooed letters on your chest, like you were just an absolute billboard for this brand. And now you think of brands like Lululemon and Viore and like these big athleisure Aloe, they've all popped up and they're massive, and people are spending, $120 on an unbranded shirt with just a little tag on the side that has the logo. And it's like, why? They've spent they've spent money on something that they don't want to outwardly represent. They can be understated. And when push comes to shove, hey, what shirt is that? It's like, oh, this is Aloe or V. Oh, I love it. It's so soft. Do you want to feel it? Those are the real interactions. Those are the people who are going to talk and evangelize your brand. Um, and it can kind of be a gut check because you want to be the one to say like, hey, if you talk about our brand, we'd really love that, and we give you. It's like you kind of have to take your foot off the gas sometimes and just let nature take its course with your customers. Like, do your best to provide an absolutely pleasurable experience, both using your product or interacting with your services and all the auxiliary pieces, and they will naturally go and spread the word.
Organic sells for sure. I feel like that's some of the best advertising, and I love that analogy with some of the athleisure brands because it's so true. Everything used to be in your face, and now it's more like what are you wearing that matters, and then that person is an extension of your brand, and they will sell it for you. So let's talk about you are a full stack brand developer. Let's talk about the design and strategy connection. Where how do you see that working? You said that you're a team of one most of the time with tools. How critical has that knowledge and skill set been for you as far as the developing tools and the strategy? How has that worked together hand in hand for you as you've built the marketing for Parakeet?
It's been a lot, and luckily I've been a part of larger organizations and other teams who have kind of gone through exercises like this. So I've seen the best practices in motion, and I get to learn from some of the best in the biz when it comes to that stuff. And just like anything in life, like if you start and build a good foundation, the rest of the things kind of fall in place. So I knew day one, again, I was kind of handed a logo on a cocktail napkin, taking the
Yeah.
time. I don't know how many back and forths we had about, do we like this green or this green? Do we like this shade
Yep.
of yellow or that shade of yellow? We took the time, even just on something as simple as that, to say, well, if we use this hue and this color and this hex code, like, can we print on t-shirts? Can we print on ceramic? If we go to a trade show, is that going to show up behind a booth? What happens if we use our black background or a white background? Do we always have to use something like that? What if we're sending in an email, light and dark mode? If you answer or if you have an answer for all of those questions up front, it makes it so much easier moving forward. So I spent a lot of time developing the playbook and um, the brand guidelines to say, let's let's nail all of these down and think through kind of the little hoops of what we may be coming up with in the future. And it's here's the logos, light, dark, grayscale, perfect. Now we have those. Sales team, if you want to send an email, you can create your own email signature, include this one. Now we're all on brand. If you want to put a little something in a contract or a Word document to signify that it's branded, cool. Here's two little feathers. We're going to use this on everything. That way, you're still on brand, and you build out these little assets. And again, you can kind of flex, you can bend. It doesn't always need to be. In our case, like everything doesn't need to be green, but like you can use the right accents to flare um, and show up. I think again, taking inspiration from more of the D2C retail brands, when you have a company like Adidas or even a company like Doritos, when you can put that iconic triangle or the three stripes and not say anything, you don't have to put your any text or colors. It can be just black and white. Like, you've done a really good job branding that. And of course, those have been around for a while. They're iconic. They're household names. But that in my mind is the goal. Like, I want that parakeet head to be just as impactful as say something like the Apple logo. So you can throw it on there and say, "Oh, I know exactly what that is." Um, so if you plan and you have those goalposts in mind, I think it's a bit easier to kind of move forward there.
Yeah, one thing that I've even noticed with your personal branding is you use that bird emoji. So did you get lucky with that, or was that part of, distinguishing and figuring out the brand name and all that?
Yeah, we got a little bit lucky kind of with that pairing, and even then, I still take flack from some friends saying like, "I thought that was a parrot." I'm like, "Yeah, well, technically speaking, sure, it may be a parrot, but if thinking back to the earlier days again, like when I didn't have a whole lot of branding material, the product wasn't necessarily launched. We were mostly in kind of a testing phase. What I set out to do was to say, when you see anything green or with this logo on, you are going to think of this brand. So regardless if it's a serious post, if it's just about my post, if it's from the company post, like as you may have noticed, and hopefully people listening to this, like anybody who's in the Parakeet company has a parrot, has that little green parrot emoji in their name, and I did that intentionally. And of course, we're not forcing people to do that. The good thing is people are excited to do that on our behalf. That's the best thing when we have interviews of, when we're looking for more salespeople or engineers. They're like, yeah, I want to put that little green bird. I see you guys and it's cool. Like I want to be part of the tribe here. And I'm like, that's good. That's what we're looking for, so that enough people see that and they recognize, you're building the associations. And now if you see that icon and you see and hear us talk about cold email or outbound, like now every time you see that, there's a connection there. And then, I was a psych major in college, so building things in a way where they're a bit more subconscious so that you can make those correlations and you can connect those associations without having to think about them so frontal, so front your brain. It makes the marketing and branding of it easier because I don't need to be so explicit about it.
Right. And prime example is I've seen you make comments on posts on LinkedIn, and you can just scroll through the comments and your name sticks out because there's the parrot on there. There's the bird, and you don't have to say anything about your brand. You just post your anecdote or your comment on that, and that's like a free. Now, if only we could all have our own brand emojis, right? But it's something that sticks out with everyone that I've seen from Parakeet on LinkedIn. It's very obvious.
Yeah, and if we were in a world where there was a section on LinkedIn that said, "What's your first name? What's your last name? And what emoji do you want to be known by?" Like this, obviously, this strategy would not work. We would be one emoji in a sea of hundreds. And even as you look out now, like there's tons of people who have, whether it's tied to a brand or it's just they like the dragon emoji. I've seen a couple people with that. It's like it's not tied to anything, but it's a way for them to kind of stick out. And it's fun, it's nice. But where I think this strategy is at least somewhat different and a bit more intentional is that it's not just me. It's anybody who's tied to it. And I think a company that I look to who's done this really well too is a company like Beehive. Everyone also has that little bee in the name to kind of give a shout out to them. And I've seen other people who have done it, but when I see that bee, now I think of that organization. I think of the newsletters. So they've done a really good job with that, and that's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish there. Of let's unify, let's be cohesive, and again, we can
Yeah.
talk about different things. I can talk about marketing. Kyle can talk about sales. We can have our reps talk about what they're doing on a day to day. We can post selfies and personal anecdotes, but it creates this ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's an ecosystem that people want to be part of. And I think as you build that, you've probably had many opportunities to work with whether that's a contract company, a freelancer, or someone on staff in the design space. So I'm thinking graphic design, video production, any of those things. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Like, what advice would you give to a marketer who feels like their designer that they're working with just doesn't get it?
Yeah, it's a pain that both parties feel, right? It's not only the marketer who's requesting something to be built or designed, but also the person who's trying to provide that design. I I try to take as much ownership as possible when I'm not only requesting something, but also providing the feedback on, we'll say, the initial or any designs thereafter, and being as explicit as possible. The first thing, and I've talked to several designers about this too. The one of the worst things that you can do that gets nobody anywhere is saying, "I need something better," or "That's not quite it," or I don't know. Uh, that's not feedback. Those are like feelings and sentiment. And hey, maybe you can start the conversation that way to say, this is kind of what I'm thinking, but being very explicit about what you're looking for and how you kind of expect it to be done. Or the alternative, saying, I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking for. Can we kind of talk through, like, let's just spitball. Let's give some ideas here. And I think those conversations, again, can be kind of mitigated and made easier if the hard work is done. I shouldn't say hard work. If some of the strategic thinking is done beforehand, right? So what I mean by that is, like, if you've thought through all of the color palettes that your brand is using, plus accent colors. Like in our case, like there's some blue elements that we use when there's too much green or white or yellow. So it's a contrasting color. It's like a third accent color for us, and it's used very sparingly. But that's a color that every once in a while will flex in. Or if the feathers don't work for our brand, well, good. We've got a set of dots that we can use, or circles, or the quarter circles to kind of represent elements of the brand. Those also work. Finding finding inspiration in things that you do and don't like are also really, really important as well. If any good agency that's doing some sort of creative work, I believe that they will use a bit of a mood board. Um, Saying, do you want something more along of this style or something like this? What do you like? What do you like about it? And then what don't you like about it? Very explicit and specific things. You do enough of that, eventually, I believe you're going to find the middle ground. Now, if you're fighting over a couple different things, like the look, the feel, the sound, the text, that's a company, like, you kind of have to pick one and sort that out first. But if it's strictly visual, I think that'll give you enough of a basis where you can reliably find at least something that both parties can say, okay, I expect it to feel different at the outcome, but I can work with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed working with clients is if they are not, a full stack designer of any sort and they don't understand the visual side of things, it's a lot of times it's like saying, "Hey, I would really love to have dinner." And to me, dinner could be steak and potatoes, and to them, dinner could be McDonald's, right? And either way, you're still having a meal. It's just how many forks are there going to be? Do you have, a server there? And so I think that the feel a lot of times with the mood boards has been a really, really critical element of success to make sure that we're all on the same page, just because once you're on the same page at the start, I feel like it goes from there, but getting onto that same page can definitely be a challenge. So there's definitely, there's definitely a challenge with anyone who's on your team or that you're working with in that sort of example. I'd love if you can walk us through any sort of project where branding and video specifically has come together super successfully and how you've seen that marketed and taken off like and exceeded your expectations.
Well, when it happens, I'll let you know. No, I mean, and I don't mean that as if it hasn't worked. What I'm really kind of hinting at is that we've been we've been building and creating things at a very quick rate, which means that by the time we're actually, so in the case of like our In the Nest podcast, right? Like every episode is going to feel a little bit different. It's going to sound different, feel different, look different at times too. We're testing out some different framings and backgrounds of it all. So none of them have necessarily reached a point where I'm like, good golly, this is, we've done it. But each episode, we're like, let's do a test pilot. Let's see how this works. Do we even like doing this? I don't know if anybody wants to talk to us. Let's just see. Let's just see. And maybe we can record. It doesn't ever need to see the light of day, but let's just give it a go. So that was the first, relatively kind of the first episode. We actually gave it a bit more thought than kind of what I'm saying as of right now. But now we're almost 10 episodes in. We have a bit of a cadence. We have best practices. We have things that we like to do. our time frame for, and like everything has just gotten quicker and faster and smoother and better. More people are seeing about it. They're talking about it, things like that. So I would say if you kind of take the approach of what we've done here of like, let's 80% done is better than 100% and unpublished. That's kind of what the philosophy we've embodied with a lot of our video content. Even with, something I would say that's more successful in terms of like the number of customers and signups that we got. Eric put together in one afternoon just a quick walkthrough for our platform of like, hey guys, Eric from Parakeet here. I'm going to show you how to verify a list, set up a campaign, and launch it. And I went in and kind of cut the ums, the ahs, the weird pauses, and just kind of reframed things. Posted it and basically forgot about it up until the next day to say, okay, let's go engage with the comments. Let's see if anybody responded. We had a bunch of people reach out. They texted him, they DM'd him. I got some stuff. They were messaging the brand on LinkedIn, which I'd always forget that that's a feature until it pops up. And it's people being like, wow, this is helpful. This is really cool. Where can I learn more? I checked out your website. I have some questions for you. So you do those little things and take the time to kind of slowly iterate each time. Again, I tend to kind of speak and throw out these cliches, but the 1% better each day, or in this case for each piece of content. um, you kind of skip over some of the "holy crap, it worked" moments, but
Yep. Yep.
every time you go, "That was better than the last. That was better than the last," or maybe one kind of flops where you go, "I think I have an idea of why that one didn't do as well. For the next one, I know what we should try." And that's kinda how it keeps not only the creative wheel spinning, which is a huge part of so much of, the video portion of it. Again, the minute that red recording light pops up, people can freeze and go, "Oh, I don't know what I'm gonna
Yes.
say or what
Yes.
I'm gonna do," but, that all helps.
Yeah, I love that. And I would love to also hear what advice you have for CMOs, marketing directors, head of marketings at different companies, specifically the ones that are listening right now and want to improve their visual storytelling. What would you say, kind of along those same lines, like what's been the success for you, and what advice would you give them?
That could be a whole episode in and of itself.
Right.
Find like, I think one of the reasons why I believe our brand and our storytelling is as effective as it is because we're living it. The classic, we were using of some of the legacy products that were on the space. We were frustrated. We were having our own issues with it. And we saw a way to make it better. And we decided to build it, hence where we're at as of right now. And that helps us speak the language of our customers. When we talk about email deliverability, or we're talking about, garbage data from certain data providers and what, like, we're talking from experience. And I think sometimes there's times and places when somebody coming in who's never been in the industry can be a really refreshing reset, either to the team, to the organization, to the company at large. Sometimes you need somebody to say, "Hey, why are we doing it this way?" And if anybody gives you the answer, "Because we've always done it this way," like, red flag, ding, 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 you found what you have to attack. Like, that is the attack vector to hammer in, because that's just not a good answer for any instance. Um, but having somebody who's a champion of the space and of the industry goes a long way. And that could be somebody internal or a customer. And if somebody says that they have a gripe about something, or if they have frustrations, or whatever sort of imperfection that they're discussing, listen to that. Like, really, really take that to heart. I I wholly understand, especially when marketers put their time and focus and energy into something, and they come up with a tagline, or some sort of creative asset, or they spend months filming something, and it's a polished video, and you go, "This is going to be perfect," and only to get crickets, or people give you negative feedback. Like, that hurts. It sucks, but it's a learning. Like, there's a reason why that happened. Like, don't blame the customers or the audience for something that did not work out the way that you intended. Like, there there's a reason for that. So that's the one thing I would say, especially in any sort of large organization. Like, talk to people outside of the team. Talk to your mom. Talk to your dad. You got to give them a call at some point too, or talk to a friend. Like, I wanted, again, going back to the copy and the transparency of it all. Like, when we first put the website together, I sent it to all of my friends, even my parents. I read it to my grandmother while she was still here, and I said, "Do you understand what I'm selling? Can you tell me what I just said? Like, explain to me what I just said to you. Because if you can't, I've done something wrong. I won't be offended. It's going to hurt my ego, but like that's the goal of where I'm going from." And I think a lot of people will, especially in kind of the SaaS and tech field, will take that feedback and say, "You don't understand what I'm getting at, or you don't understand the technical prowess that is required for this industry. No, you just made this complicated and convoluted for no reason."
Right. Right. And I love the idea of sharing with people that may not have any purview into your industry, because if it's not clear right away, you're not doing your job.
You've got 8 seconds max to get somebody's
Yeah.
attention on the hero of a homepage. And I can't tell you how many websites I go to, and it has nothing to do with I cannot tell you for the life of me if they're selling, if they're buying, if this is a person. I have no idea, and by that point now I'm not interested. I have no interest in trying to scour and dig through your the rest of your copy to try to figure out what the hell you're trying to tell me. It's just not worth my time and energy.
But don't make me do the work in what you should present in the first 8 seconds.
Exactly. Exactly. Make
Yeah.
make it easy for them, and that's not to say oversimplify it and spoon feed people, second grade reading level cat in the hat type copy. Like, no, find a balance, find something that works. One of the things I did very early on too was we picked out a list of words that we do not say at Parakeet. Like, we will never say we're cutting edge. We will never say like we're robust. We will never say that we like all of those words, because I don't know what they mean in any context. I don't, and I don't think people reading those really do either. Like, tell me what that means. How are you empowering me to do more sales? I'm telling you that you will get more inboxes, more emails into an inbox. That is a tactical answer that I can. So if that is what I mean by that, then let's say that from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, that's the biggest turnoff to any company that I see, is if it's claims to be the best, number one, most robust, AI first, all the buzzwords that we think are so important, actually just fill that chaos, and it's like, okay, you're just like everybody else, and I just want to know, what can you do for me, and how's it going to happen, and how quickly am I going to see results?
That's the biggest marketing or sales, that if you can answer the why question, or in this case the kind of what, why do I care? Why should I care? And what can you do for me? If you could answer both of those within the span of 8 seconds, like, people are either interested in what you're selling or they're not. And you talk to the ones who are interested, then that's your total addressable market. Those are your prospects in market right now. Those are the ones that you care about. The ones who don't, they were never meant to be a customer to begin with. So perfect. Now you don't have to waste your time with them.
A lot of times agencies, we have the same thing. We have a bunch of logos from companies we've worked with on the main website, but that's not why someone is going to work with us. It's going to be because of the humanized aspects of the way that we talk to people. It's going to be because, can you get it done, and is it understandable, and what's the benefit? Everybody has logos. Everybody has the same buzzwords, but that's really not going to move the needle.
Yeah, again, with all the AI speculation and hesitation and concern these days, it trickles in and bleeds into other areas of life too. How do I know you're actually working with those companies unless they're massive? The number of people that reach out to me on LinkedIn that says they've worked for, and it's always in this order too: Amazon, Nike, Walmart. And I'm like, I don't believe those companies are
There's
working
no
with
way.
everybody. I'm like,
No, no.
I just don't believe that. And even if you are, like, we're a small fish in a very, very big pond then, apparently, for you. Like, we're not. So yeah, I agree completely. Like, it's a good supplementing factor, but that shouldn't be something you lean on as a crutch.
Yeah, and how does Nike relate to Parakeet? Very different industries. So it's not, if I have created content for MailChimp and all the other cold outbound email strategists, then maybe there'd be some clout there. But like you said, you're probably not even telling the truth if you've worked for everyone, and so has everybody else.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
And now, the clarity check.
So the last portion of our podcast today, we want to do something called the clarity check. And these are just quick response answers. There's a handful of questions. And just off the top of your head, would love to hear just some quick 1 to 2 sentence replies on some things that we see trending. One thing I'd like to ask is, what is your favorite kind of video to watch now?
I mean, not related to anything I'm doing professionally, like woodworking videos for whatever reason. Love those. I find any video of somebody doing a very hands-on technical skill super satisfying.
That's awesome. It is satisfying. One of the most satisfying ones I've seen is even like the landscaping videos where they take the most overrun yards and turn it into a masterpiece.
2.5 hours later, my eyes are dry and I'm still watching.
Still watching. Does way better than my content. What's your least favorite marketing buzzword?
Oh man,
Or maybe a few.
I feel like there's a whole host of them. Robust is one that always comes to mind. Like that one just feels like such a right-click thesaurus, like make this word better. Like that
What does
always
that
feel.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, like any sort of cliche, like again, the AI first, groundbreaking. Those the number one, best in class, according to who voted on that.
Yeah.
You just like, you don't, it's like going to a restaurant and like, we have the world famous hamburger. You're like, oh, was Guy Fieri here? Or did he tell you that? Or are you just claiming this yourself? Because I need to see some receipts for some of these things.
Yes. All right, last one. Clarity or creativity, which one wins?
Oh, clarity. If you can be, it's so much better to be clear than it is cheeky or creative or funny. I mean, in a way, funny is clear because in order for it to be funny, you have to understand the joke. But clear, it's just so much better to be clear. People have issues, people have problems, people need solutions. Tell them exactly how you solve those solutions, and they'll be much more impressed and happy to hand over their money and their time and themselves to you and your brand than somebody who came up with a pithy little thing to put it on their website. And now you've just left them scratching their head going, I don't know if I need this or not.
What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And AJ, I feel like the biggest thing I learned from you today is just treat people like people, and that'll be your win.
That's it. Be yourself. Again, yet another cliche. We can maybe we can have like a tally going of how many cliches I've kind of spun out over the course of this hour.
Yes.
But be yourself with imperfections and all, and because you're one of one, and that's what makes things authentic. If you try to be somebody else, you try to be another brand, you're just doing what everyone else is doing, and you'll get left by the wayside and forgotten.
Love that. Well, very cool, man. Appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Clarity Code.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be in here. Had a lot of fun doing this.
One of my biggest takeaways from this conversation with AJ is the thought that the human-to-human contact, the humanness of a brand is trending. And that's something that I think is only going to grow. And it's interesting that we're at such a time where that trend is growing, but also AI is becoming bigger, better, faster, cheaper. So it's something that we as the creatives, strategists, and brand builders have to use as a tool, but to never replace the human side, especially when it comes to marketing. If we want to win the customers and if we want to exceed expectations, we're going to have to keep that human touch in there. So we'll always use AI as a tool to help expedite things, to make things quicker, to generate ideas. But at the end of the day, people just want people. And that's the most important thing we have. Thanks for joining us on the Clarity Code. I'm Brandon D. Marks. We'll see you on the next episode.
Catch the Clarity Code on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.